In this video, I'm going to share with you two key things to focus on when it comes to email marketing and are going to have probably some of the highest impact on your results long term. If you start to get these two principles right when you approach email marketing, the results are going to compound over weeks, months, and years. Are going to significantly transform what you're doing. These aren't crazy, radical new tactics, strategies, complex testing approaches. They're really fundamentals that I see so many brand owners just get wrong. So many amazing businesses get wrong. And I'm going to share with you them here. I think it's going to be a relief. I think it's going to help add thousands to your bottom line if you get these things right. And it's going to give you a bit of clarity, I believe, on how to approach making improvements when it comes to emails. It's going to give you a new set of eyes on how you look at an email that you're about to send and how you prioritize it. So without further ado, let me jump into things. My name's Sean Miller. I'm one half of the email marketing agency Auraseed. We've worked with over 100 brands now. Prior to Auraseed, we worked with some of the top agencies in the world, and now we do it ourselves. We've seen under the hood of over 100 different direct-to-consumer e-commerce brands, 6, 7, and 8 figures. We've seen smaller 6-figure brands launch and get to the point where they hit their first 6 figures, 7 and 8 figures. And we've also helped transform what some big 7 or 8 figure brands have already been doing and helped them implement the right principles, the right approaches, conceptualize and see email marketing properly and get incremental returns, like significant returns. Like sometimes we've seen 2, 3x, 4x for big 7, 8 figure brands when it comes to just their email alone, which can be pretty transformational. So we know a thing or two. And one of the biggest mistakes is the emails are boring. Like they don't hook. There's no je ne sais pas to their emails. There's no quality which is engaging to it. It's boring, it's generic, and it looks and feels and sounds just about like everyone else. And if it looks and feels and sounds like one of the best brands within your category, and it's like, you've taken some of those fundamental qualities and made them your own, that's fantastic, but that's not what I'm talking about. Recently I just saw a Thanksgiving email that came through. I've been looking at a lot of Thanksgiving emails recently because we've got Thanksgiving coming up for a lot of our brands. So I'm thinking about how do we want to approach things, doing market research, gaining inspiration on some of the top brands have approached things over the last few years. And one of the things I noticed is people are so boring with these things. Like they don't create a hook. They don't encourage someone to read through. Like there's no pushing the envelope. There's no taking a risk, and the copy's boring. And you've really got to think about something in particular, and I'm going to get to that thing in a second. As an email marketer, you can't forget two of the most important principles that you have to reverse engineer. These first principles are clicks and opens. So let's start with opens, or let's start with clicks actually. The reality is, in 2014, this is so fascinating. Litmus, MailChimp, and a few others, I think, the names escape me right now, did a tracking exercise, and they concluded, like, across all sources, this is like me aggregating all of those different sources and finding the average, that on average 20% of people make it to the bottom of your emails. So only 40% make it midway. And it's way worse now. People's attention spans are absolutely fried. This was before TikTok was a thing. This is before people's dopamine centers were even more fizzled and frazzled out. This was before e-commerce had a big boom where there's way more competition, like bidding for attention. So you've got to think about it now. If only 20% of people in 2014 got to the bottom of your email, you really got to think about how many people are getting to the bottom of your email now. I think it's a fair stab to say no more than 20% of people make it past the fold of your email. So like literally without scrolling, like unless you've got them at hello, essentially, they're not going to read the rest of your email. So we're going to focus on getting the opens right. But then after that, getting the clicks. Unless you're getting that click, above the fold and giving people enough reason to at least scroll down, then, build on your reason for them to click through to your email, you're just going to be missing out on so many people. So you could be sending to 10, 20, 30,000 people, and your clicks could just be so lackluster purely because you're not getting people hooked from the, from the top of the email. Like, are you giving people a reason to scroll through your email? Are you giving people a reason to want to continue to read on? Like, this is just so slept on. A lot of people just go so random. They take a stab at it. There's no real rhyme or reason behind it. There's no real understanding of like the psychology of sales and marketing. in their approach. So I just see so many random, like, above the folds, like so much wasted space, so much empty, wasted space, irrelevant content, missing the point. So, like, for example, I've seen so many big sales events where above the folds, there's no big emphasis on the sale or like what the offer is. It's not hooky, it's not engaging, they're not using colors which track eyes. There's no CTA or clear action. The copy is usually bland and generic, and as people are depending on ChatGPT more and more, keep an eye on your agencies or your marketers if they're not actually, thinking outside the box and being creative marketers when it comes to this. But like, are you being a bit daring? Are you being a bit clever? Are you thinking about what make people purchase when you're creating your above the fold? And it could be many different reasons. Like, what are the core fundamental drivers? People want to feel desirable. People want to solve pains. People want to have certain benefits in their life and improve their life, have better energy, health, wellness, abundance, desirability. They want to feel loved. They want to feel sexy. You can accomplish these things through clever copy or beautiful imagery. But however you approach it, you've got to be thinking about these things. Like, am I accomplishing those goals above the fold? Have I pattern interrupted? Have I made someone laugh? I'm going, okay, I'll give these, like, you've got your chance. You send an email, 30 other people are in their inbox right now. You've got your chance. They're on the toilet at work. What are you going to say? What are you going to hit them with? If you're only sending, for all of our brands, we've made previous videos on this, you want to be sending, 2 or 3 emails per week on average as a campaign plan. So, okay, we start to up our campaign frequency, but then you need to get this right. Otherwise, you'll see results surely just by sending more volume. But also, if they're really, really rubbish, you're going to drill the pattern into people of, I don't really want to open those emails. They're boring. They're bland. Like, what's in it for me? Like, are you boring? Like, you need to really ask yourself, would I want to read my emails? Are they boring? Would they engage me? Like, you really have to do that thought experiment to get honest with yourself and then start going, okay, there's no room for that going into 2025. Like, more competition, ad platforms are getting more and more saturated and more expensive and becoming more and more important. How am I going to approach my creative and content? Am I being smart about it? What is my brand tone? How do I say, like, who am I inspired by, and how can I then have fun with this? This is really something to think about. So you can have the best bridge CTAs and content within your email, but if you're not getting people to scroll, it's all wasted. So you really need to focus on this. And another reality is when it comes to testing. So I said there are 2 key principles. One of them is the content above the fold. The second one is the subject line. Just focus on your subject line, especially when it comes into testing. Everything else pales in comparison. So Experian conducted an email marketing study just in time for the holiday season, and the study explored 9 different verticals, so many different product categories to account for variables, and thousands of responses on a medley of different email marketing topics. Do you want to know what they found? Testing is great. Testing subject lines has the most explosive impact, a whopping 226 higher percent than any other variable. So, like, when you have all of these email marketers making or other marketers making really clickbaity videos and emails, like, you have to test this, you have to actually, we test HTML versus text. It's like, okay, fine, but the data says that has 0 impact, where it says subject lines has a 62% impact. And I think a lot of this is people want to, agencies, whenever they're talking to brands, they want to make out that they're doing, they want to bamboozle you a little bit. So you think and assume they're smarter than they are. But really what you care about is results. And if they're just testing subject lines properly, all of that time spent on testing all of this irrelevant crap here, creative frequency clearly makes start. But when it comes to frequency, your options are between 1, 2, and 3 emails. Time of day, use Klaviyo Smart Send. If you don't have Klaviyo Smart Send, meaning you don't have the highest volume of a high enough volume of email contacts to qualify for email smart send, what you want to do is essentially just go, 1 week I send on Tuesdays and Thursdays, on the other week I send on Mondays and Wednesdays, and you run that for a month or 2, and then Thursdays and Sundays as well, Saturday and Sunday is your weekend send. Run that, use the data from Klaviyo as well to inform educated guesses, and then just see which ones perform better, and then build a schedule around it. So that's frequency and time of day. Creative, okay, cool. We can jump to that. Subject line, 62%. So all of the time focusing on a lot of these irrelevant different sort of testing metrics could just be spent on composing better subject lines. I see so many lazy subject lines. Again, wasted space and words with the subject lines. Like, you only have so many words. Like, what are you going to say and why are you going to say it? So focusing on what our subject lines are and putting a good A/B test on that, and then just making sure we're maximizing our impact above the fold, you're going to get so much better results when it comes to email marketing. And you haven't done any of this fancy pantsy stuff. You've just focused on fundamental, marketing psychology and like what works. Okay. So going from, for example, a 25% open rate to a 60% open rate, it's nearly a 200% increase in eyeballs on every email that you're sending. So this is the funnel. This is the funnel, the two key principles you really want to work on. If you just double down on this in your email marketing and didn't change much else, you're going to get much better returns. And then you put this on top of like everything we talk about when it comes to flows, everything we talk about when it comes to like campaign frequency, but also content pillars, deliverability. You put all of that on top. Now you've got an email marketing strategy. It's going to be working really, really well. So you want a hooky subject line. 60%, use the curve framework. So think, when you're ideating your subject line, think, does it evoke curiosity? Does it drive urgency? Is it relevant to my customer, their pains, or anything like that? Or is something seasonal, for example? I'll give you an example. We have one of our motorbike brands, and if there was a big win at the MotoGP or a big result, we're going to reference that because it's going to be within the zeitgeist and it's going to be interesting to people. So you want to jump on things which are topical, trending, if it's appropriate for your brand. Value. So does it deliver value? Is it indicating that it's going to add value to your life? So if it's something along the lines of, I follow a supplement brand called Kinobody. I'm sure you may or may not have heard of those. Gregor Gallagher. He absolutely kills it. And he talks about like getting the optimal masculine physique and everything. So he talks about this one thing that transforms like my shoulder to waist ratio. So many guys, that's value. That's value. Not only does that touch on value, that touches on emotion as well, because then it touches on the emotional drivers of why people purchase. And for the most part, people are either running away from something or running towards something. So you need to think about that. How do you tap into that? Start thinking like a marketer, spend more time in your subject lines and way less time on everything else. Now you want to optimize above the fold. Engaging hooks, subheaders, CTAs, and designs. That is what you want to focus on. I think above the fold really came back from the press days and like the newspaper days, when like they would fold the newspaper, and like that's where the term came from. So this is like a principle that's, it's ever since we've been printing media, and it's so prevalent today. It's still so important today, especially with emails, especially with dwindling attention spans. You got to really take your shot. So these are the things you want to focus on. Everything below the fold sort of pales in significance. So I'm going to give you some good examples and some bad examples. Specialized. I used to ride a Specialized mountain bike back in the day. I mean, it's Black Friday. What percentage of, how much are they giving off? I think they've just about hidden 30% off. They've just about hidden maybe their biggest sales event of the year, and they're like whispering it. They're whispering it, which just makes no sense. It makes no sense. This is like, I don't even know if the shop now would be above the fold, because we've decided to have this much wasted space here. It's trying to be clever. It's trying to be too clever. It's not accomplishing the goal, and it's not understanding these principles. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't be clever with your design, but when you have these principles in mind, and then you've got creative inspiration, then you can put them all together and go, creative inspiration and creative flair on top of principles at work. Like, what should be here? Like, if we're to go, we haven't got a framework for above the fold. I could probably make this, but even if we're thinking like, it's a similar thing, like realistically, the header wants to be like the companion to the subject line. So if we're indicating they're going to get value, for example, value for money, and they're going to say like, how much? Like, this needs to be, I would make, say, up to 30%, so much larger on this. I would have a big shop now about them to save on bikes and make that super engaging. So like, you open up that email and go, cool, I could get a new bike at 30% off. That's huge. And I can click here. But this, like, it's just a bit lackluster. The same goes here. You literally have to get your microscope out to be able to see what they're doing here. Huge header. You could have superimposed some cool graphic and like header over this as well. Ending soon. Unlock your free link. I think the CTA doesn't even indicate like what you might be getting. Like, what they're actually trying to tell you is you can save money, but they haven't told you how much. They haven't told you when the sale's ending. They don't really infer there's a sale in any of the color choices. There's no like new colors or anything that's going to catch your eye. you're going to look at that and you're not going to really know that they've got a big sale which is ending soon on some really cool jewelry. So it's just a waste of time. Whereas you look at these guys, I mean, enjoyment, look at this. Removing all the barriers to great sets. They've really thought about a big hook, a great header. Like, that's value, that's emotion, that's all of this. They've got a CTA above the fold, and then their subheader really follows it up with a bit more detail and value as well. Support your stamina with all natural science-backed ingredients without restriction of a prescription. So, like, that's going to be really, really valuable and emotionally triggering to people who need it, especially like guys who are in the market for improving like their libido in that domain. And the design looks really, really nice. It curves. It's got their logo here. I mean, there's a lot to be learned from how they've approached that. Same goes here. Like, the side they've created, like the cloud. This is like design. It's clever using good principles as well. The cloud cooling pillow. They've got a nice cloud here to really, really emphasize that feeling of comfort and that feeling of like, yeah, that feeling of comfort and a good night's sleep and feeling like you're floating on a cloud. Like that's taps into the psyche of everyone, really. You'll notice on all of these, no wasted space here with the logos, nice, succinct, no banners unnecessarily wasting space again and forcing the valuable content below the fold. Nice CTA above the fold as well. Really, really clever stuff. I'm going to show you one more. This is a Welcome Series playbook we use for a lot of our brand partners. Whoops. And this is one of my favorite welcome emails, what you can see here. And like, again, you can use these principles all in your welcome emails. Like, what do most people say when they do a welcome email? They have like a great offer, but then they hide it at the bottom of the email. People aren't scrolling that far. So look at this, make waves, not waste. So it taps into, and it's got a really nice model shot here at the top. So a lot of people, why they buy out leisure gear is they want to feel like they look good. So of course, they haven't forgotten that. They've tapped into that with like their model shot at the top here. But they've also reminded people straight away that sustainability is a priority of theirs, and they've done it in 4 words. Like, how much wasted space could you, like, have you seen some brands make without just taking the time to be a little bit clever in how they deliver their message and not be boring? Like, no one else is saying that. That's really, really cool. Take 15% off. Bold. You know about it. We make ocean-friendly athleisure from recycled plastic so you can look good while doing good. I mean, I just think the way they've condensed their copy down, they said so much with so little. Shop now, all above the fold. Absolutely murdered this email. And then their bridge section is fantastic as well. Icons to emphasize some of their key USPs. And then they've got an opportunity to jump in and to explore the collection. I'm not going to go into what a good welcome series email here is, but I think this is an execution of a fantastic above the fold email. And that's about it. Today, the main priority was to remind you of some of the key principles and the key fundamentals to focus on. Like, are you boring above the fold? Are you hooking? Are you using some of the best, key principles? Are you putting what's most valuable and most important above the fold? And if you're saving the good stuff for below, you're missing a trick here. And secondly, stop wasting time on so many other tests and double down and reinvest that time into ideating good subject lines that follow these key principles. Those key principles being the curve framework. So thinking to yourself, does it evoke curiosity? Does it evoke urgency, relevancy, value, or emotion? Try and say as little as possible, as much as possible, with as little words as possible, and just take the time to not rush that part of the process. You're going to design a great email. If you're going to do all of that, don't just settle for what ChatGPT spits out straight away. Don't rush that. Don't tolerate that from your agency, and you're going to go a long, long way to having much better email marketing results. So that's it for now, and I'll see you on the next one.